crew spent about 35 days training inside of Dragon. Now, to prepare them for flight, our teams at SpaceX spent the last several months teaching the crew about orbital mechanics and how to live in microgravity. While this was more of a review for Peggy Whitson, for the rest of the crew, this was their first time flying on Dragon. The training program includes nearly 100 different lessons covering all aspects of the flight. The crew spent time inside of our Dragon training spacecraft to run simulations of ascent, the International Space Station rendezvous, and re-entry. And they also spent time at the launch pad in our suit-up room and working through emergency procedures that would be necessary in the unlikely event of a pad abort scenario.
And beyond those critical trainings from SpaceX for the ascent and return phases of the mission, Axiom Space has facilitated a host of efforts over the last 10 months to ensure that the crew and all of those who support them, like ground operations, mission control, flight controllers, are all ready for the mission while on board station. And kicking off efforts for that training at Axiom headquarters in August of 2024, the Ax-4 crew immediately began to familiarize themselves with the range of teams and systems that they would need to become proficient with in order to succeed. From selecting the food that they would eat and learning how to prepare it with the food warming and hydration racks on orbit, to understanding the tools and systems available to them throughout the International Space Station. Every small detail is critical to mission success. So in Building 9 at Johnson Space Center, the crews learned and rehearsed routine operations, medical procedures, emergency situations, and media exercises. All of this built up to full-scale simulations that were then run in coordination with ground teams at Johnson and around the world.
And as the name of the International Space Station suggests, specific modules are owned and operated by different nations. The crew traveled to Germany to earn their certification of these systems in the European module known as Columbus. As an ESA project astronaut, Swabish had additional trainings at the European Astronaut Center. The crew then traveled to Japan to learn the systems of the Japanese experiment module, also known as Kibo. With hands-on training that culminated in a round of testing, the crew became certified to use the systems of Kibo for their flight.
And beyond the specific requirements of each space station module, the crew also participated in a range of efforts that would bond them into a crew and ensure that they were physically and mentally prepared for any mission scenario. So this included a week of training with the National Outdoor Leadership School, or NOLS, where the crew faced a week of kayaking against heavy winds. It also included a day in an altitude chamber to experience how their body reacts to different oxygen levels, and even included an underwater helicopter escape training simulation.
SpaceX Dragon crew has tablets secured, restraints tightened, and visors down.
SpaceX copies. Crew are configured for entry. 5 minutes until predicted comm blackout. We'll see you on the other side at 0925 Zulu.
Copy 09250 on the other side of the blackout.
Okay, and good comms there from crew that they are ready and configured for their return time. And, you know, an aspect of that is to wrap up our discussion about training. That's a major training point for crew, understanding how their return phase is going to look so that they know, let's go ahead and call ground and let them know that we're ready for maintaining it. So training really is at the heart of any successful mission. Plan, train, and fly in that order.
Yeah, exactly. Training prepares every astronaut, even those very experienced like Peggy Whitson, and she also did retraining with the Ax-4 crew. It's important for the crew to train together. But this prepares them for any phase, any potential scenario in their mission.
Exactly right. You know, and missions like this are important milestones for everyone involved, from the crew members who fly to those that they represent, to the host of scientists and engineers around the world who have an opportunity for their research or their technology to be tested in microgravity. Everyone learns from these missions. And for Axiom Space, this is at the heart of why we do these missions. We're building opportunities for others to advance what is possible and expand what is known. And we want to enable every human everywhere to take part in this. To the host of scientists and engineers around the world. Now, after a beautiful launch on June 25th, the Ax-4 crew docked with the International Space Station a little over a day later, opening the hatch and greeting the Expedition 73 crew on June 26th. The crew shared some good words in a welcoming ceremony and an astronaut pinning that we don't have there, but did happen, before quickly getting to work on their extensive itinerary. Each crew member brought with them a host of research, technology demonstrations, and outreach objectives, ranging from human physiology to space radiation impact studies, and even some gardening while they were up there. welcoming ceremony. So this crew maintained a very full timeline, but they prepared for this, part of their training. Each crew member wanted to ensure that every minute of this mission was utilized and that all of their objectives were hit. So Peggy, Shooks, Suave, and Tibor were ready to work with their time on board. Over the course of 18 days on board the station, they accomplished over 60 research activities, as well as more than 20 outreach events. But as their time on station came to a close, the Ax-4 crew participated in a brief farewell ceremony where they said their goodbyes to the Expedition 73 crew. And now for more details on the incredible work performed by this crew on orbit, check out axiomspace.com to see more.
Yeah, I love that this crew did so much outreach. 20 events in 18 days is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's
so
pretty
very
impressive.
Impressed, plus the 60 experiments on top of that. So
I mean, and as we discussed earlier, it was a huge priority for them to be able to conduct those outreach events for the people of their countries who may not have had a chance to talk to an astronaut, to understand why are we going to space. Now they have a better understanding of that. And like you mentioned earlier, it's get them started young. Let them understand the passion of it. I know that my nieces, my nephew, right, they're excited about space. Yeah. They want to be involved in space too. So I can only imagine getting a call from Tibor, getting a call from Suave, and understanding, what are we doing up there?
Oh, that would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Now, we are expecting that blackout period coming up here in just about a couple of minutes. Now, this blackout period, this is when the Dragon spacecraft re-enters back into the Earth's atmosphere. What's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of plasma buildup as it's getting more through the atmosphere. And that plasma is getting to about 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, building up around the spacecraft. So we will be losing comms. This is expected. Today we're expecting it to last about 6 to 7 minutes, and then we'll regain comms. And you'll probably hear the core after the expected blackout period time has ended. Make some comms, some calls to the crew until they regain the comms and get confirmation from the crew that they can communicate with each other.
That's exactly right. You bring up a good point. An expected loss of comm, or sometimes you'll hear loss of signal, or LOS. It's an expected part of spaceflight. It is planned for. They are predictable. And mission operators or flight controllers work through that to understand when are we going to be able to have and maintain communications with the vehicle, communications with crew, and that can happen at any time during the spaceflight. So for this 5 minutes, right, based on the physics you discussed of the vehicle heating up, it's going to happen, and ground crews can predict for that and work around it. But it's a good reminder that we're waiting for those verbal cues, not just visual cues that we'll get. We've been able to see some visual cues today of crew in their suits, but also be looking for visual cues later, right? Good parachute deploy. We're also listening though for good verbal cues. So we heard a minute ago, Commander Peggy Whitson was calling down saying that crew is in a good configuration for us to go into this period of no comms.
Yeah, and we do expect that blackout period has probably begun at this point.
That's
and
right.
Speaking of visual cues, I've had the opportunity to talk to some of the astronauts that have flown on our Dragon spacecraft, and they've said it's kind of one of the most spectacular sights they've seen.
Really?
With different, they said it looks like sparks outside of the window, but with multiple different colors, multiple different looks of what that plasma heating up around the vehicle looks like. So they should be experiencing that right now. The Ax-4 crew is still inside of the Dragon spacecraft. Again, this blackout period will last approximately 6 to 7 minutes. And again, we won't hear any comms throughout this period until the expected blackout time is complete, and then we'll start hearing comms from the core calling out to the crew.
That's right.
As we begin the second half of entry, Dragon is now beginning to flush nitrox into the cabin and continuing to top off the Ax-4 crew's suits with cool air. Again, this is what will allow the cabin temperature to remain comfortable while, as I mentioned, the external temperatures reach 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat shield is pointing forward, leading the spacecraft to the landing site. Dragon's primary heat shield is comprised of PICA 3.0, which stands for Phenolic Impregnated Carbon Ablator. First generation PICA was first developed by NASA for studying and sampling comets within our solar system. SpaceX then partnered with NASA to develop Pika-X, which was the second-generation product used on all Dragon 1 commercial resupply missions that successfully resupplied the space station on 20 missions. Pika 3.0 was developed specifically for use on Dragon as we prepared to begin flying Crew with enhanced structural and thermal properties that optimized the heat shield and drove down cost and mass. The remainder of the Crew Dragon spacecraft is composed primarily of a SpaceX proprietary ablative material. It's another class of thermal protection, which is lighter weight versus Pika and protects the underlying composite structure during re-entry to ensure the structural capabilities are maintained. Now, while Dragon will experience temperatures well over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit during peak re-entry conditions, the characteristics of the TPS or thermal protection systems, coupled with the ECLS environmental control and life support system in the pressurized interior, will ensure that the Ax-4 crew will stay cool and comfortable during all the phases of re-entry through splashdown with all that heat surrounding them.
Exactly right. Well, now, as Ax-4 set a new benchmark for private astronaut missions with the most research activities executed aboard an Axiom Space mission to the International Space Station to date. With over 60 experiments representing 31 countries, the mission showcased the growing global interest in leveraging low Earth orbit for scientific discovery. The research portfolio included 8 technology demonstrations, 12 life science investigations, and 27 research projects. And this research spanned a wide range of disciplines, from cancer biology to regenerative medicine to even artificial intelligence, agriculture, and materials science. And this further demonstrates how low Earth orbit is a platform for innovation. Now, many of these studies were designed to address challenges both in space and on Earth, such as improving disease modeling, enhancing food security, and developing smarter autonomous systems. Now, the scale and diversity of the Ax-4 research portfolio reflect a shift toward more collaborative science on orbit together, positioning commercial astronaut missions as catalysts for advancing knowledge and solving real-world problems. You know, Jesse, I think this is one of the most important things about a mission like this, is it allows us an opportunity to understand we have a number of problems that we're trying to address on Earth, and it is a unique opportunity to be able to go to low Earth orbit and understand some of the key aspects of that kind of research. And missions like Ax-4 really allow for those kind of problems to continue to have momentum behind them to be solved. The International Space Station has been tackling so many of these problems for over 2 decades now.
Yeah.
And that research needs to continue. It needs to keep going.
I think a lot of people don't realize that some of the stuff that we have that seem very simple and common to us here on Earth actually sometimes come from the research that happens in space.
Exactly right. Exactly right. One of the things we were talking about earlier is a major aspect of long-duration spaceflight is the radiation impacts. And I know for me personally, I thought one of the really interesting research topics or research experiments that was being conducted on orbit for Ax-4 was looking at what are the different materials and properties that we can use to protect against space radiation. So during the mission, we had a great call between Peggy, Suave, and Dr. Lucy Lowe with Axiom Space to discuss exactly what it is that we're trying to protect for and understand why space radiation is so difficult to wrap. So, you know, missions like Ax-4, they're all important. And we are now seeing great confirmations of the Dragon spacecraft making its return back to Earth right now.
And while we are in a blackout period, this is an excellent view, seeing Dragon from the ground as it's re-entering back into Earth's atmosphere. Now, that blackout period is expected to conclude at 2:25 a.m. Pacific time, so just a couple more minutes here, and then hopefully we'll get some comms back between the core and the crew. But in the meantime, at least got some cool views of the crew almost back down here on Earth.
Exactly right. And you know, making that kind of visual confirmation is such an important part of what we're tracking today. We're tracking a lot of very dynamic operations. And so being able to see what we see on the screen there is incredibly important for mission controllers.
Dragon SpaceX comm check.
Again, we may not hear the crew until they do get those comms back, that acquisition of signal.
Dragon SpaceX comm check.
SpaceX Dragon, we have you loud and clear.
Dragon, we have you the same. Expect automated chute deployment.
Dragon copies, automated chute deploy.
And great news, as you heard there, we got comms from the Ax-4 crew.
That's exactly what we're waiting for, and I love that you can hear the excitement in Peggy's voice, too.
Yeah.
It's like she's done this before.
Maybe a few times. A great live view on your screen inside of Dragon as they are re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. And we did hear confirmation that there will be the automatic drogue and parachute deployment coming up here shortly.
And on your screen with that great live view.
GPS converge. Expect nominal altitude for drogue chute deploy.
Copy. Nominal GPS chute deploy.
And we're going to hear a lot of comms back and forth throughout these last 5 minutes here as the Corps will be calling out their altitude as they're making their way down, as well as when the drogue parachutes deploy and the main parachutes deploy. And then as they get closer and closer to Earth, just keeping the crew updated with how close they are before splashdown so that they can expect that splashdown.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And those are the things that crew that you're seeing there on the left side of your screen are following along with their onboard telemetry. And for you at home as well, you can see on your screens as well things like vehicle speed, vehicle altitude. All those are really important metrics that we're trying to understand as part of the visual confirmations, the audio communications or the verbal communications that we've gotten with crew. We're also getting vehicle communications and telemetry to all understand how we're looking as we lead up to these next 4 minutes before.
And there you can see on your screen, the seats are rotating for the crew. This prepares them for that splashdown, so they do
brace for drogue window.
They do reorient the crew depending on the dynamic events that are happening, so the crew does lean back during re-entry.
Crew is braced.
And then they are sitting up a little bit more upright for those drogue and main parachutes to deploy.
That's right. Having them in that position helps distribute the forces correctly so that when they're experiencing that dynamic event, they're as comfortable as they can possibly be.
Yeah. We're now waiting for confirmation that the Dragon's chutes have deployed, coming up here just in under a minute or so. Just prior to the deployment of the initial drogue chutes, Dragon automatically safes the propulsion system. Dragon then deploys its drogue parachutes to stabilize and decelerate the vehicle. Then just before drogue deployment, seats automatically rotate to 26 degrees, which we just saw there, to keep the crew within acceptable G limits for entry and landing. And
excellent view.
Great view. Drogue parachutes are deployed. View looking forward.
Drogue descent rate nominal.
Descent rate nominal. Copy.
Again, we're going to hear a lot of comms throughout this next 3 minutes here. This is looking forward on the Dragon spacecraft up at the chutes. Those drogue parachutes are fully deployed now, so we do expect those main parachutes to deploy here shortly.
If you're just joining us, we have now confirmed that the Ax-4 crew on their return home is roughly 2.5 minutes out from splashdown, and our main chutes have deployed.
Main chute descent rate nominal.
Copy. Main chute descent rate nominal, 1,000 meters for Dragon.
We copy 1,000 meters.
Great visual confirmation, as well as those comms that the 4 main parachutes have deployed. Again, we are going to be slowing down the vehicle from 350 miles per hour all the way down to just about 15, 16 miles per hour by the time that the vehicle touches down and splashes down into the ocean.
Exactly right. You mentioned these beautiful visual confirmations that we're getting. An important aspect of today's specific splashdown is that it's occurring at night.
That's Dragon 800.
Copy 800 meters.
Commander Peggy Whitson confirming the spacecraft's altitude as it's making its descent into the Pacific Ocean just off the coast of San Diego in Southern California.
Yes, love that it's coming off the coast of my hometown.
600 meters.
600 meters.
And at 600 meters, we're just under a minute before that expected splashdown. The landing in water is a lot simpler and more reliable. Provides a little bit of margin against unlikely parachute issues. We did have to learn how to make Dragon waterproof as we are splashing down into the ocean. But
SpaceX copies 400 meters. Reminder to brace for splashdown.
Oh, that's a pretty cool view.
Yeah. That's right. Maintaining the vehicle's signature through things like cloud lighter and any kind of atmospheric disturbance allows us to maintain visual contact with the vehicle as it's making its final descent towards water landing.
And it's a little foggy, as you can see there.
Yeah, Pacific fog is rolling in.
We've got some very bright lights as Dragon, you can see the ocean there. Dragon is about to touch down in just a few seconds here.
And working their way towards the vehicle are the SpaceX and Axiom support teams that will be present for the next phase of our splashdown coverage today. At this point, we'll be waiting for confirmation of the crew's safe landing, and then we'll move into the phases of this mission, which are really, let's recover the vehicle, let's recover the crew, let's make our assessments, and at that point, we'll be covering.
And we have splashdown of the Ax-4 crew back on planet Earth.
Welcome home.
SpaceX Dragon splashdown. We are in Stable 1.
SpaceX copies splashdown in Stable 1. On behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
And thanks for the great ride and the safe trip, and Grace is happy to be back.
We are happy to have you back home safely as well.
Some words between the core and our commander, Peggy Whitson, as the Ax-4 crew has made it back home, splashed down at
Dragon. SpaceX, for your awareness, SISTI system verifications are in progress. I will report back when recovery personnel are en route.
Dragon.
Yeah, so now you can see a couple fast boats are going to be approaching the Dragon spacecraft. They're going to start with making sure that the spacecraft is safe. They're going to do some sniff checks. They're going to pick up those main parachutes. As Dragon splashed down, the chutes were immediately cut to make sure there's no safety issues there. So we'll pick up those main parachutes up. Once the crew deems that the spacecraft is safe, then our recovery vessel, Shannon, can begin to approach and begin the recovery process. So we are now eagerly waiting on recovery of our Dragon spacecraft with the Ax-4 crew. Dragon has already autonomously completed several steps to save itself following splashdown.
So for those of you just joining us, the return of Ax-4 has gone smoothly so far, and we just got great confirmation that crew has splashed down. So Dragon successfully re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, followed by deployment of its parachutes to slow the spacecraft down to a gentle 15 miles per hour. And at that point, they successfully splashed down in the Pacific Ocean at 2:31 a.m. Pacific time, off the coast of Southern California. So at this point, like you mentioned, Jesse, we are just waiting for Dragon's recovery of that from Shannon.
Yeah, upon detection of landing, Dragon automatically releases the main parachutes to prevent wind from pulling the spacecraft. Dragon then automatically saves any pyrotechnics still present on the vehicle and may automatically perform additional minor system reconfigurations. The astronauts remain seated and in their suits at this point, but the onboard air conditioning keeps temperatures in check inside the spacecraft, and the communication systems on board remain powered so the crew can continue to communicate.
And as we're watching, SpaceX has 2 fast boats in their recovery fleet, which move very quickly to get to the splashdown point. And those are being followed by Shannon, the main recovery vessel, which will move into position upwind of the spacecraft. The 2 fast boats